Hey y'all, we're Alec and Cindy and we're sharing the journey. As you can tell by the thumbnail, we had an interesting camper stay in the campground this week, or this past week, and they put that cute little sign out that says beware of drunk campers, and it shows them like crawling across the road. And those people ended up, they weren't any problem, we didn't have any issues with them, but I thought it was an interesting topic. So Cindy and I thought we would talk a little bit about campground etiquette and some of the stuff that you should do and some of the stuff you shouldn't do. And I want to say these are unwritten rules, but actually when you go to a lot of campgrounds,
they are very known. They're very written.
They're written. They're on the back of the guide you get, or the information sheet, or it's explained to you when you pull in the campground. So, yes, we're work campers, and yes, we have to deal with some of these issues, but we're not really coming to you as the perspective of work campers.
Right.
We're coming to you as
guests,
as
just
campers.
like you are when you come into a campground. You're a campground guest at that point. And we're campground guests at a lot of campgrounds we go
just
to.
Coming down here, we spent 3 days in Kerrville, Texas, and 2 days in Green River, Utah. And we weren't work campers there. We were just paying guests that were enjoying ourselves. So we put together a little list. We're old. Our memory's not that great, so we're going to get right into it. So the number one topic on our list is respect quiet hours. We understand that you've come to a campground to have a good time and to enjoy yourselves. But you've got to remember that other people have come to the campground also to enjoy themselves, and they're paying the same amount of money, or with KOA, if you're a member of KOA, you may be paying 10% less than they are because they aren't a member, so they may be paying more than you are to have the same level of enjoyment. And so what we've witnessed when we had children and we would go camping, or since we've been work camping and just during our normal travels, is especially on the weekends, let's just use this part, quiet hours at 10 o'clock. And
that's pretty standard.
That's pretty standard across the board. We have been one place that we didn't work, we were just guests, and I think their quiet time was 9 o'clock. It was a state park in South Carolina, I think.
It may have been.
But I don't remember.
Traditionally, it's 10 o'clock at night till 7 or 8 the next morning, which is very reasonable in my opinion.
Right. And one thing we've noticed is getting older is we can do midnight stuff at 2 in the afternoon. So we don't have to stay up.
What is it our parents used to tell you? If you can't do it before midnight, you might not need to be doing it.
So in a campground, if you can't do it before 10 o'clock, and what are some examples of things that people have done that we've stayed at campgrounds? Play their music till 11 or 12 o'clock at night, loudly. If it goes beyond your sight after hours, it's too loud. They're having campfires, which we encourage, we love it, but they've got 8 people around it that have been drinking, and they're loud. And you don't realize when you're drinking how loud you are.
That's exactly right.
Or you don't realize, this campground's real open. How far
sound travels.
So music, loud talking, that sort of stuff.
And we get it. You want to sit around the campfire at night. You want to have fun. You want to enjoy yourselves. But if you're in a cramped campground and your neighbor is just 3 feet away from you, any little noise you make at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, they're liable to hear. And you need to take notice of who may be camping beside you. It may be an older couple that goes to bed early. It may be a young couple with young children. And we all know, we were parents, or most of us were, and we know that the children need to get their rest at night, or tomorrow is going to be a really bad day. So just be respectful and mindful of your neighbors and what they have going on. One solution that I have is, if you want to sit as a group around a campfire at night, late at night, a lot of campgrounds have a designated area that's usually away from campers, that, like a community fire pit. Take your fire and chairs up there and sit and enjoy yourself and have a good time.
And you should be away from a lot of the campers. Now, you know, after 26 years of law enforcement, you'd think I'd have situational awareness, but I have got the drain off the roof is dripping, and when the wind blows it on my shoulder. So situational awareness is just a life hack that you should have, that evidently I need to be. Yeah. Number 2, clean up after yourself. So, example, the other day I went up to, we have a dock here for fishing at Salt Lake. Some fishermen went up there, had a great time, but they left, there was pieces of cut shrimp, cut bait on the railing. There was a little bit of like guts on the cleaning station, and there were some beer cans. They had a great time.
And we've got a trash can.
We've got a trash can right there
for you to dispose of everything.
Yeah. So, and other places we've been, you go to the playground. We don't have many kids here, so we haven't experienced that here, but kids are leaving their soda cans and their candy wrappers and stuff. And, if I was going up there with my kids, I would feel inclined to pick that up so my kids didn't get cut on the soda can or step on a piece of gum.
And it just doesn't look good.
It doesn't look good, and you shouldn't leave your trash for someone else. So we encourage you to enjoy yourself, but make sure that you pick up after you leave. Number 3, follow fire rules.
Which, it depends on what part of the country you're in. I know Montana usually always has fire bans. Texas, I think, has a lot of fire bans. Yes. But it really just depends on how dry and how much rain. But the fire bans are there for a reason.
Yeah, make sure that that it's okay to burn a fire at the campground. But then usually campgrounds have a designated spot. Usually on your site they provide you a fire ring or whatever. And don't go moving the fire rings around or just saying, I don't want to sit over there, we're just going to burn the fire over here on the grass, because that ruins the site for the next person that comes to see it. Yeah. Also, like when we were in California,
or ask before you do that.
You couldn't bring wood from outside. Matter of fact, they even had like border crossing station as you went into California. And they would they would stop you at the border of California. It's like they were their own country, and ask you if you had firewood.
Well, and technically, if it's not a known rule, it should be. You don't transport firewood from one state to the next because of parasites, bugs, things like that. It should be a known rule, period. If you are traveling to a different state, if you're within your state, if you live in Texas and you're going to a park in Texas, that's fine. But if you are crossing a state line, do not take firewood across a state line.
But we've also worked in campgrounds that don't allow you to bring firewood from outside, because it costs a lot of money to keep these campgrounds up, and a lot of these campgrounds are able to keep some of the camping fees lower than they might be because they have other streams of revenue like firewood and that sort of stuff. So just be mindful of the rules.
And if you purchase the firewood from your campground you're staying at, you're supporting that campground.
And the community. Be mindful of wildlife and animals. Now, this is not just in the campground. We spent a lot of time in Yellowstone this past summer, and we went. I've got a short of it where this lady is feeding the chipmunks. Well, now the chipmunks pretty much swarm you when you go up to Fairy Falls.
Okay, and I'm just going to tell you, it freaked me out. Wild animals are wild animals. They may look cute and sweet and fun, and it was obvious that people had been feeding these animals. And I mean, they were crawling up into your lap, crawling up your shirt. Well, I'm sorry, I don't want a wild animal crawling on me like that. I'd rather observe him from afar. But what's to say he wouldn't have bit her in the face or something? I mean, that's just not safe.
And also in the campgrounds, I've had people walk up to our dogs that are on a lead in our yard and pet them without asking. And you don't know that dog.
Do that.
You should never do that. Just be mindful of that. Stay on designated trails and roads. A lot of campgrounds have.
Oh, let's go back to the wild animals.
Okay. Don't pet the fluffy cows. Bison.
Well, but we were at a campground, and these people were sitting at their picnic table at their camping cabin, and were they chipmunks or ground squirrels or something, kept coming up to them, literally sitting on the picnic table looking at them, waiting on them to feed them. It's just not good. They get dependent on people feeding them, and then how are they going to survive when
especially
the
in the
campground's closed and there's nobody there to feed them anymore?
Staying on designated trails and roads. As far as campgrounds, there's areas that are employee-only areas. They may not be safe for a guest to go back there. They could have hazardous material, or they could have golf carts with keys in them, or just anything that you or your child could end up getting hurt on. And you'd be surprised how many people go into areas that
they shouldn't.
Yeah, and when we were in South Carolina, we stayed at a state park inside Columbia, and they had an area that they had these hiking trails around this pond, and they had a couple of areas that they were trying to rehab the habitat, and they were planting like wildflowers and that sort of stuff, and they had signs, please stay out of this area. You'd be surprised at how many people we saw go in there, and those people put a lot of work trying to rebuild that area and stuff, and when it's ready for you, they'll open it up.
Well, and that goes for state parks, national parks. When we were in Glacier, they actually obviously had a lot of issue with people going off trail or making their own trail, or if the trail was crowded, they would veer off the trail, and they're making new paths. They had volunteers walking up and down these trails trying to keep people on the path, because they're trying to keep this a natural area for everybody to enjoy. And if everybody just traipses off on their own, A, they could get hurt, and B, you're destroying the beauty of the place.
So we're not preaching to you. We want you to have the best experience that you can have while you're camping, while allowing others to have the best experience they can have.
Right. So Alec is more diplomatic in this area than I am.
Yes.
Because I'm
more diplomatic in a lot of areas.
I was a mom. I had 6 kids. We
You still have 6 kids.
I still have 6 kids. I homeschooled. There were rules. You were to follow the rules. But I always like to give you the reason why you need to follow the rules. So that's why I go off on little
Number 6, respect others' privacy. So we should all know, but we don't evidently, that if this is my campsite, from stanchion to stanchion, don't cut across my campsite because you don't want to walk to the end of the road to follow the road. If a campsite's not being used, walk through it. If a campsite's being used, stay off of it. That's someone else is paying for that right to use that. So respect other people's privacy. Also, that goes with parking your vehicle in a position where I can't access. We go off for the day, like we're getting ready to go down to Padre Island, and and you park your truck in a way that I can't get into my site. Just be mindful. Just be mindful. Here's a big one. This is a huge one that causes, I don't know how many calls we get on this. Be courteous with your lights. Now, we are bad. And we're
guilty.
We've been called on this, but when we were in Montana, we were staying at Columbia Falls RV Park, about 5 miles out of Glacier, and we set up lights around the campground, and they were on a dusk to daylight timer, and because we had bears and they would walk through the site, and we wanted to look out the window before we went outside and see if there were any bears before we went outside. But so that is sort of understandable, even though they asked us to take some of the lights down. But an example of
to turn them off before when we turned them for the evening.
Right. So we were in a campground in California, and they had a huge playground. It's a huge campground, like 300 and something sites, and they had a huge playground, and they had like 40 sites that went all the way around the campground, and there was public access on either end, sidewalks walking in, and then the other two sides were surrounded by campsites. This one couple decided that even though the rules of operation for the campground were dusk to dawn, they set up these
The playground.
the playground, I'm sorry, dusk to dawn. They set up these two big spotlights, because they had like 4 kids, and shined them across the campground.
Well, across the playground,
Yes.
to light the playground up.
And the people across the way were being blinded. I bet the phone rang off the hook in the office that night. And they couldn't understand why they needed to shut it down. Well, like I told them, the playground's dusk to dawn, and then your lights are impeding other people from enjoying themselves. So just be mindful of that. Be thoughtful with shared amenities. So we were staying at a campground in South Texas a couple years ago, and they had one hot tub.
Well, it was more of a residential type hot tub that could comfortably seat 4 people.
And they had a sign on it to limit your visit to 15 minutes, because people would sit in it for an hour or 2 hours. And there was a couple, we actually were trying to get in the hot tub, and there was a couple that just kept hitting the timer, and finally I just asked them to get out, that we'd like a turn, and they acted like they were offended. They said, "We're paying for this, blah blah blah," and I said, "Well, so are we." So be mindful. Other thing is, like, a lot of these small campgrounds only have like 3 wash machines and 3 dryers. So before we got our own little portable wash machine, there's a great video on it in our list of videos. If we went up there and we had 3 or 4 loads of clothes, and there were 3 washers available, we would only use 2 of the washers in case somebody else came up there and wanted to wash clothes. Yes, it would have been more convenient for us
To just hog them all.
but so be mindful of the shared amenities, the bathrooms, the hot tub, the pool, the playground. A lot of pools have a 50 or 60 person occupancy, and it's hot, and maybe more than 50 or 60 people in the campground. So that same little campground in South Texas that we were in,
Yeah, it was a small pool too.
I think it would only hold like 40 people, and it got to be where, it's hot in South Texas in the summer, like averaged 107 degrees. So they would actually have an employee sit there and write down what time you got there.
When to leave.
Yep.
if people were waiting. If there's no one waiting, that's not an issue.
So we're almost done. The campground police are almost done with their with their thing, but respect hours of operation is going to be number 10. And just to let you know, there's only 12 things on our list. But be mindful of the employees. If the store closes at 8 o'clock, don't show up at 7:59 and expect to do an hour's worth of shopping. You know, Cindy, when we go back to Yellowstone, Cindy's actually going to be managing the campground store there. And we worked that park this past year. And how many times did you have people coming in at closing want to do?
It happens a lot, but we understand if, you went out to dinner, you came back, oh my goodness, I forgot to get firewood. We want to do a fire
Or a bag
tonight.
of ice real quick.
Or a bag of ice, or, that's fine. If you've forgotten to pick up a last minute something, that's fine. But don't come in shopping for souvenirs.
I mean, you can if you want to, but it's not very respectful. Pets.
We all like to travel with our pets.
Yep, we travel with 2 dogs and a cat. Chance, Midnight, and Puma the cat. But we remind you that it's respectful and responsible to keep your dog on a leash or a tether, to pick up your dog poop. And that's even if, I'll give an example.
Even if it's on your own site.
So we have short-term and long-term site rentals here. Anything under 27 days is short-term. Anything 27 days or more is long-term. So we may or may not have had a guest here that has several dogs, and I'm doing grounds here.
Well, and a lot of people will set up a fenced area on their site and let their dogs go out. It's usually encompassed around the door of their camper. They'll let their dogs out. They'll let them go to the bathroom. They'll bring them back in. Okay, that's fine. But be mindful that you...
Pick up your dog poop. The guy cutting your yard doesn't want to step in it.
It's just nice and respectful for you to go pick up after your pet. Who's going to do it when you leave?
Me, I am.
And we have dog stations all throughout most campgrounds. They have dog stations with doggy bags and a trash can right there beside it. Pick up after your pet. You wouldn't want one of your children walking through a grassy area and stepping in dog poop and you having to deal with that. Just be respectful and mindful of others.
It's part of good ownership for animals. Visitor policies.
If a campground has a lot of amenities, one big question that's asked a lot is, why do I have to pay a visitor fee? Well, okay, we get it if you're just got a friend coming in to pick you up and y'all are going shopping. That's fine, not a big deal. But they should check in at the office, get some sort of a pass so that the campground and the people on the grounds know that vehicle, and we're just trying to keep all of our guests safe and make sure that there's none unauthorized vehicles on the campground. And yes, there may be a visitor fee because the campground is offering a lot of amenities.
Pool, putt-putt.
Yeah.
Fishing. We have, like here, we have a
playground,
freshwater pond to fish in, and Salt Lake. Playgrounds. It costs a lot to run a campground.
Exactly. So the more people we have here, the more wear and tear on everything. And yes, there may be a visitor fee.
And last but not least is your trash. And I am going to say this from a work camper perspective, is don't put your trash out at night. Animals will get in it, and then someone else or you are going to have to clean it up. Also, be mindful of, a lot of parks will pick your trash up at your site, but it's like from 11 to 1.
Well, usually it's from like 9 to noon.
9 to noon.
They'll say, put your trash out in the morning, we'll pick it up for you. But be mindful, when you put your bag of trash out, I mean, I don't know what y'all do at home, but
Tie it up.
I normally, when I take my trash bag out of the trash can, I tie a knot in the top of it so that if it gets knocked over, trash isn't going to be going everywhere. Well, if you're putting your trash out at the edge of your site for one of the grounds people to come by to pick up, be courteous, tie your bag up. We have a lot of wind here. If the wind blows it, it can blow trash all the way down the road. And then who's got to pick it up?
Me. So we know that none of y'all all do this all the time. But I ask you to share this video with your camping friends that may violate some of these policies.
Well, or it could be new campers that yes, they may read the rules, but they go, oh, but
no
is
big
it
deal.
really that important?
Yep. So we ask you always to like the video, share the video. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, we ask that you subscribe. And I always put the shameless plug is if you want to help us with some gas money, there's a link down below for Amazon. We are an affiliate. Amazon gives us on average 1% commission for sending people over. Doesn't cost you anything, and we get a little bit of gas money for our next adventure. So we want to thank you for joining us. And we were not preaching. We were just being good stewards and reminding you so you can remind your friends, because I know that you're not the problem. It's everybody else. Thank you.